Statzer, who gave me permission to use his name and story. I changed some names for practical reasons. For example, there were 3 Todds with me in Iraq. To avoid having to say Todd the neurosurgeon, or Todd the therapist, or Todd the heart surgeon, I simply renamed 2 of them. Since there were so many different people on the worship team and so many different chaplains, I combined a lot of the people into 2 characters, John and Chaplain W. I am sure that some of the events I discuss in the book would sound different if told from the perspective of other doctors at the base, or the soldiers, or terrorists, or Iraqis who were part of my story. In the chaos of battlefield medicine, it was common for us to hear from a soldier that our patient was a terrorist, or that the injuries had been caused by an IED, only to find out later that the patient was actually a good guy, or that the IED was actually a landmine. Chalk it up to the fog of war, as well as to the differences in the accounts of any 2 witnesses describing the same event. The dialogue in this book was recreated from memory, and since it has been 8 years since I was in Iraq, I am sure that some of the dialogue, while true to the spirit of the conversation it recreates, nevertheless expresses it in words that differ from those actually spoken. Finally, I didn't include all 120 of my emails home in this book. I modified and combined some of them to make sense in the context of this book. They were also edited for grammar. Somehow I managed to make a few grammatical errors while emailing from the combat zone, and names were changed where appropriate. Chapter 1. Maintain control, Lee. Sit on your body armor on the flight in. Excuse me? The C-130 pilot laughed. It was December 28, 2004, and we were in the base exchange, or BX, at Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar. He looked at his colleague and said, "The major here's never been in Iraq, sir." The shorter one wore silver oak leaves on his flight suit, a lieutenant colonel, and like the pilot who'd just given me the advice, he also wore pilot's wings. He leaned closer and said, "He said you should sit on your Kevlar, as opposed to wearing it. The bullets come in from below." They walked away chuckling, no doubt at the bewilderment on my face. I checked my watch. 1600 hours, 4 p.m., 8 hours to go. I shrugged their advice off uneasily and continued checking off the last few items from the list of things that I'd been told, since arriving here 2 days before from San Antonio, I would need at my new deployment. Things that had not been on my official packing list, but that others had found useful, such as earplugs for the plane ride I was waiting for, the one that would deliver me to the war. Earlier in the day, I had been told that my flight into Iraq would be delayed until tonight, due to a mortar attack on the runway at Balad Air Base, my destination. Balad was also called Mortaritaville, because at that point in the war it was the most frequently mortared base in Iraq. An Army friend who'd been there had emailed me a couple of weeks before I left about dealing with mortars. "Dear Lee, don't worry too much about the mortars. That's like worrying about lightning. You can't control where they hit, and most of them don't blow up anyway. Worry more about the rockets." His advice wasn't particularly comforting. The 2 pilots I'd just spoken with in the BX delivered people like me to Balad and brought us out. I decided it would be wise to heed their advice about the body armor, although I didn't look forward to a 4-hour flight sitting on the hard ceramic plates. Later on, at the DFAC dining facility, I enjoyed enchiladas and tacos served by an Asian contractor in an Arab country. The jumble of out-of-place foods and faces struck me as funny, perhaps because I'd been traveling for 2 days and was filled with an equally jumbled mix of emotions. But as the time to report to the airfield approached, I stopped chuckling, regretting my decision to eat something spicy. I wandered around Al Udeid, taking pictures of the strange sights, such as a Santa and snowman still on display from Christmas 3 days before. I spent a little while in a lounge chair next to the Olympic-sized swimming pool, but since I